All right, brothers, we are at qualification certification of locomotive engineers. And we're at Appendix C for the Part 240 procedure obtaining the evaluation motor vehicle driving record. The purpose of the appendix is outlined the procedure available individual railroads for complying with requirements of Section 4A of the Railroad Safety Improvement Act of 1988 and Section 240. 109, 240, 111, 240, 205 of this part. The provision required the railroad consider the motor vehicle driving record of each of the person prior to the issuing of him or her certification, recertification, qualified and locomotive engineer. The full obligation of railroad must review a candidate recent most motor vehicle record driving record. A general that will assign the record on the following of the state agencies issued candidate current license. However, including the multiple records in candidate has been issued the motor vehicle driver's license for more than other state agencies. In addition, in railroad determination whether the certification candidate is less than the national driver registers and is so listed to review the data for the cause of the candidate to be listed. Access to the motor vehicle driving record, the right to the railroad workers that employ the employer, the right of railroad workers and their employers to prospective employers to access state motor vehicle licensing agencies data concerning the individual's driving record and controlled by the state law. Although many states have the mechanism through the prospective employers, railroads can obtain such data that some states in privacy concerns may such as access very difficult, impossible. Such individuals generally are entitled to obtain access driving record data that will be relied on the state motor vehicle license agency of the agency taking the concern of the driving privilege. Federal Railroad Administration placed responsibility on the individual who wanted to serve as a locomotive engineer to request the current state of the driving license agency to the Federal Railroad and responsibility of individuals who want to serve as a locomotive engineer to request the current state driver's license agency or agencies to furnish such data directly to the railroad. Considering certification of locomotive operations depending on the procedures adopted the particular state agencies. This will involve the candidate either sending the state agency a brief letter requesting action of the executing state agencies from the accomplished to the same effect if in normally improvement payment a nominal fee established by the state agencies for such as a record check. In rare instances where the certification candidate has been issued multiple licenses, it may require the single request of national driver's registration. National Driver's Register. In addition, when seeking the individual state of the data, each end of the engineer candidate is required to request each search and the retrieval to be performed and of any relevant information concerning his or her driving record contained in the National Driver Registry. National Driver Registry (NDR) is a system individual created by the Congress in 1960. In essence, the National Wild Repository for the information of problem drivers that was created by the effort of protecting the motorist is the voluntary state and the federal competitive state and federal cooperative or when the assist motor vehicle driving license agencies gaining access to the actions taken by the other state engineering agencies concerning the individual motor vehicle and the record of the NDR, the design address the problems occurred with the chronic tractor law violators losing their license in one of the state travel to receive licenses any other states. Currently, the NDR the maintained with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the NTA, and NH National Highway Traffic Safety Administration (NHTSA) and the Department of Transportation under the provisions of the National Drivers Act of 23 U.S. Standard Code 401 note that under the statute states motor vehicle licensing authorized, volunteer, and notify and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration when they are taking the deny and revoke and cancel a person's motor vehicle driver's license under the provision of 1982 changing the statutes authorized to notify the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and concerning convictions of the operation of the motor vehicle while under the influence of impaired alcoholic controlled substances, traffic violations arise in connection with fatal accident, reckless driving, racing on the highway, even if the convictions do not result in immediate loss of driving privileges. Information submitted by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration contains a minimum of 3 specific spaces. Data that includes the identification state authority provided by the information, the name of the person who is licensing is being affected, the date of birth of that person. It may be supplemented by the data concerning the person's height and weight and the color of the eyes, social security account number, and state collects such data. All right, access to the NDR, National Driving Records. Essentially, only the individual state license or agencies can obtain the access to the national driver's license. Since railroads have no direct access to national driving records, the FRA requires the individual seeking certification as a locomotive engineer request the national driving record search, perform search as the each result be furnished to the railroad. The Federal Railroad requires that each person request the national driving record information directly from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, unless the prospective operator of the motor vehicle driver's license issued to the state motor vehicle licensing agency is participating under the provisions of the National Driver Register Act of 1982, participating in states that can directly approve the national driving records data on behalf of the prospective engineer. The state agencies currently are authorized to access the national driving records data the manner identified in Appendix D of this regulation. Request of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to perform a national driver's record check. The procedures of the requesting the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration performance of the national driving record check as follows: each of the persons shall submit a written request to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration for the following agencies: Chief National Driving Registration, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, 400 7th Street, South Washington, D.C. 20509. And 0. If the request for the contains the full legal name, any other names used by the person, nickname, the professional names, date of the birth, sex, height, and weight, and the color of eyes, driver's license number, unless that is not available, the request must be authorized in the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to perform the national driving records, furnishing the result search directly at the railroad. The request must identify the railroad, the result, and the furnished, including the proper name, the railroad, and proper mailing address for the railroad. The person seeking to be certified locomotive engineer shall be in the request of the signature and be notarized. The Federal Railroad requires the request of writing containing the detailed and available to improve reliable data search. Any person that may supply additional information to being mandated by the Federal Railroad Administration. Furnishing additional information such as the person's social security number, account number will help to provide more positively identify in records that shall exist concerning with the requester. Although there is no fee to charge, such as national driver record checks, a minimum cost may be incurred but having the following request notarized. The requirements of the notarization are designed to ensure that each person's right to privacy is being respected. All the records are only to be disclosed and legally authorized to legally authorized parties. Requesting a state agency to perform a national driver's records check. As discussed earlier in the connection with the obtaining data to comply with the state agency itself, the person can even write a letter with the agency asking the national driver's record check, and can the agency informs the making of the request, and if the request is made by the letter, individual must follow the same procedure the required directly seeking the data of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. At the present use of any are only limited to the number of the state licenses agencies to have the capacity to make a national direct driver's license and currently in nature. They anticipated the number of the states such capability will increase in nature near future. Therefore, the Federal Railroad Administration continue to update the identification of such states, revising Appendix D to this identification Appendix D to the regulation to identify the such states agencies. Since it would be efficiently to prospect a locomotive engineer to make a single request for both aspects for the information required for this use. Under this rule, for FRA anticipates the state agency inquiry that eventually become predominantly method of making the national driver record check. Request the state agency's involvement payment of the nominal fee established by the state agency for such a record check. State agency normally will respond approximately 30 days or less, or advise whether is not listed or the person is named, whether there is or not a listing of the person with the name and date of the birth, their potential match to the inquiry state within not responsible causing the entry of the agency normally indicated with the writing existent with a probable match with identifying the state legend, since the agency suspended, revoked, canceled the relevant license of conviction person of the violation referenced earlier in the appendix. actions will probably national driving record matches occur. The responsibility provided by the after the performance of national driver record check. It limits to either notification no potential record match identified with notification potential record match was identified with the later event occurs. Notification will include the identification of the state motor license authority which possessed the relevant record. The national driving record check will result in indication in a potential match in the states with relevant data in the same state. The furnished detailed data is because it is had issued by the person of the driver's license. No further action is required for the obtaining additional data. The national driver record check results in the indicate a potential match the state with the relevant data different in the state which is furnished detailed and necessary contact individual. If it is necessary to contact individual state motor vehicle license authority furnished in the national driver record information to obtain relevant record, the FRA places the responsibility on the railroad to notify the engineer candidate on the candidate to contact the state relevant information. Federal Railroad Administration requires the certification candidate to write to the state license agency. Request the agency inform the railroad concerning the person's driver's record. If required by the state agency, the person have to pay a nominal fee providing such data that may have to furnish the written evidence that prospective operators consent to the release of the data to the railroad. The Federal Railroad Administration does not require the railroad to certify if certification candidate go beyond these efforts to obtain information. The control of these such state agency, a railroad may act upon the pending certification without a data if the individual state agency refuses to supply the records. All right. If there is no issuing of the state license agency provided by the railroad with the available records, the record must verify the record pertains to the person with a considerable certification necessary for the permit verification. Because of instances only limited identification information furnished by the national driver's record might result in about the different person being supplied by to the railroad. Among the available means of the verifying additional state the records returning the certification candidate, physical description, photographs, handwriting comparisons. Only the railroad has been attained by the motor vehicle driver. Only the railroad has obtained a motor vehicle driving record which depending on the circumstances may consist of one or more of the two documents. The railroad must afford the prospective engineer the opportunity to review the record responding to the writing and consistent with the accordance with the provisions of 242.19. Reviewing the operator must occur with the railroad evaluates the record. The railroad required evaluation subsequent decision must make it done compliance with the provision of this part. The appendix D part identification of state agencies that perform national driver's license registration checks.